I had worked tirelessly to save every penny, and finally, after years of effort, I was ready to move into my new home. It was supposed to be a fresh start, a peaceful life in a quiet, well-kept community. But the moment I unpacked my first box, I realized that quiet didn't quite mean peaceful. No, because right across the street lived Karen, the self-proclaimed queen of the HOA. The very day I moved in, I received my first warning. A crisp white envelope was taped to my front door, with the dreaded words stamped across the top, HOA violation notice. I was utterly confused as I ripped open the letter. Dear resident. It has come to our attention that your residence is in violation of several community guidelines. Please remove all non-conforming furniture from your front porch and ensure all visible belongings meet aesthetic standards. Failure to comply will result in further action. Sincerely. The HOA Board. I stood there, frowning, trying to figure out what could possibly be wrong. There was just one chair on the front porch, nothing over the top, just a simple, modern seat that fit the house perfectly. No rusty cars in the driveway, no lawn gnomes or wild decorations, just one chair. So, what could be the issue? That's when I saw her, Karen, standing across the street with her arms crossed, watching me. I waved, trying to be friendly. Morning, neighbor. I called. She didn't wave back. Instead, she marched straight to my driveway, pointing at the chair. You need to remove that, she snapped. I blinked, taken aback. What? Why? It doesn't match community standards, she said, her voice dripping with disdain. I looked at the chair, then back at her. It's literally just a chair. Her face twisted in disgust. It's not approved. I stared at her, incredulous. Karen, it's just a chair. It's not hurting anyone. Not approved, she repeated, her voice tight, and then her gaze swept over my house with disdain. And neither is your house. My brow furrowed in confusion. Excuse me. She smirked, clearly pleased with herself. We weren't informed of a new tenant. Did the previous owner get this purchase approved by the board? And then it clicked. Karen assumed I was a renter, someone without any real stake in the community, just some random person moving in without her permission. I decided to have a little fun with her. I don't think the owner needs to check in with you, I replied smoothly. Her smug grin widened. Oh, but they do. We have strict policies about who can live here. If the homeowner didn't get this approved, then I'll have to start the eviction process. I let out a small laugh. Eviction? Yes, she said, her voice growing smugger by the second. We don't allow renters to disturb our community's harmony. That was when I decided to hit her with the truth. Reaching into my pocket, I pulled out my house keys and twirled them on my finger. That's great to hear, Karen. Because I'm not a renter, I said, a grin spreading across my face. I'm the new owner. Her expression faltered, the confidence fading. Why you bought this house? Yep. Paid in full. Signed. Sealed. Delivered. She was speechless, her face turning pale. For a moment, she didn't say anything, then, without skipping a beat, she plastered on the fakest smile I had ever seen. Well, she said sweetly, welcome to the neighborhood. I'm the president of the HOA, so if you need anything, you can come to me. I nodded, maintaining my composure. Good to know, I said before turning and closing the door in her face. I thought that was the end of it. Oh, how wrong I was. Over the next few days, more and more HOA violation notices showed up, each one more absurd than the last. First, it was my porch light. Then, it was my trash bins being visible from the street. Then, it was the fact that my car was parked in my own driveway. Karen wasn't going to let it go. She couldn't evict me, so now she was determined to make my life miserable. What she didn't know, however, was that I had a secret. Not only did I own this house, but I owned several others in the neighborhood. In fact, I owned nearly a third of the entire community. And Karen was about to learn just how much power I really had. One morning, I woke up to another HOA violation notice. This one was different, though. It wasn't just a warning. It was a formal complaint, demanding an immediate hearing before the HOA board. Apparently, my front yard was neglected and out of compliance with neighborhood standards. I was baffled. I had moved in less than a week ago, and my lawn was perfectly manicured. Standing on my front porch, I shook my head as Mark, my next-door neighbor, strolled over with his coffee, grinning as though he were watching a reality show unfold in real life. "You really pissed off Queen Karen," he chuckled, nodding at the letter in my hand. "She's been running around talking to the other board members. She's out for blood." I sighed, knowing what was coming. Yeah, she tried to evict me before, but she realized I actually own the place. Now she's just doubling down. Mark took a sip of his coffee and smirked. "Oh, it gets better. She doesn't know you own more than just this place, does she?" I grinned. "Not yet." That afternoon, I walked into the HOA office, fully expecting Karen to have stacked the deck against me. Sure enough, she was already seated at the long wooden conference table, a folder of paperwork spread out in front of her. The other board members looked either tired or amused by her antics. Greg, the vice president, barely glanced up as I sat down. "Let's get this over with," he muttered, clearly fed up. Karen wasted no time launching into her spiel, flipping through her papers dramatically. "As you can see," she began, "this homeowner has repeatedly violated our standards. His lawn is unkempt, his porch is cluttered, and his deliveries are excessive. He is disrupting the harmony of our beautiful community." I leaned back in my chair, keeping my cool. My lawn is mowed. My porch has exactly one chair. And I get Amazon deliveries just like everyone else here. Karen's face turned red. "That's not the point," she snapped. "The point is, he doesn't respect the community's aesthetic." Greg sighed and rubbed his temples. "Karen, do you have actual evidence of these violations?" Karen gestured wildly at her paperwork. "I have photos." I glanced at the photos she had printed out. One showed a single blade of grass slightly taller than the others. Another showed my trash bins at the curb on pickup day, where they were supposed to be. The last one. A single Amazon package on my porch. I couldn't help but laugh. "Karen, are you serious?" "This is a serious matter," she insisted, her tone rising. "We cannot allow homeowners to lower property values by disregarding the rules." I leaned forward, letting my voice drop to a dangerously calm level. "Actually, Karen, I think we need to discuss your violations." Karen froze. "What are you talking about?" I smirked. I did some digging. Turns out, as the self-proclaimed enforcer of HOA rules, you've been breaking quite a few yourself. I flipped open a folder of my own and slid it across the table. For example, the community guidelines clearly state that trash cans cannot be left outside for more than 6 hours after pickup. Here's a photo of your bin still out the next morning. Karen's face drained of color. That's irrelevant." "Oh, there's more," I continued, flipping the page. Guideline 14B states that all vehicles must be parked in designated driveways or garages. But here's a picture of your car parked on the street, repeatedly. Karen opened and closed her mouth like a fish gasping for air. I leaned in, lowering my voice to make sure it hit her hard. "And let's not forget the fact that you built an unapproved extension on your backyard patio, no permits, no approval from the board. That's a major violation." Greg turned to Karen, his eyes narrowing. "Is this true?" Karen swallowed hard, but the smugness had vanished. "That's different." Greg let out a long sigh. "Karen, we've had enough of this nonsense. You can't harass homeowners for non-existent violations while breaking half the rules yourself. Karen's body stiffened. She had no words left. Case dismissed, Greg announced, standing up. And Karen, you might want to get your own violations sorted. As I walked out, I couldn't help but smirk. Karen's entire world had crumbled. But I knew she wasn't done with me. No, not by a long shot. The next few days were eerily quiet, no violation notices, no passive-aggressive messages. Most importantly, no sign of Karen. I knew then that her silence wasn't surrender. It was recalibration. And then, it came, a letter from the HOA. This one wasn't another violation notice. It was an eviction notice, signed by the board, demanding that I vacate my own home due to persistent community disruptions and failure to comply with homeowner standards. I actually laughed when I read it. Karen had really gone for it. Mark came over as I held up the paper. No way she actually did it. Oh, she did it, I said, shaking my head. She went nuclear. Mark grabbed the letter and read it over. Dude, she doesn't even have the power to evict you. The HOA can fine you, harass you, but they can't just kick you out. I grinned. She's about to learn that the hard way. I contacted my lawyer immediately, who confirmed what I already knew, this was completely illegal. The HOA couldn't evict me. They had no authority to do so. What made it even funnier was that Karen hadn't even followed the proper procedures. She had convinced a few board members to sign it, but the process was never legally reviewed. In other words, she had forged the eviction order. Rather than reacting immediately, I waited. I wanted Karen to think she had won. Sure enough, the next morning she was all smiles, glowing with the triumph of a false victory. She waved at the neighbors, probably congratulating herself for restoring order to her perfect community. But I wasn't going to let her have the last laugh. That afternoon, I called an emergency HOA meeting, not as the resident under attack, but as a property owner. When I walked in, Karen was already seated, her smug grin plastered on her face. I'm surprised you even showed up, she said, barely containing her glee. We assumed you'd be packing by now. I set a stack of legal documents on the table and leaned forward, letting the weight of my words sink in. Actually, Karen, I came to discuss something important, I began, the future of this community. Karen scoffed. There's nothing to discuss. The board already made their decision. You have 30 days to vacate. I chuckled. Yeah, about that. You don't have the authority to evict me. In fact, the eviction notice you sent me is completely fraudulent. You didn't file it properly. It wasn't reviewed legally. And you bypassed the entire process. I slid a document across the table. This is from my lawyer. Consider this a formal cease and desist. If you don't retract your fake eviction, there will be consequences. Karen's expression faltered for the first time in days. I knew this war wasn't over yet, but for the first time, I felt like I had the upper hand. Karen's confident smile faltered when I slid a new document across the table. This is absurd, she muttered, trying to maintain her composure. Oh, and one more thing, I said, keeping my tone calm and collected as I pulled out another sheet of paper. I wasn't planning to bring this up, but seeing as you've tried to remove me from my own property, I thought I should make something clear. I paused, letting the tension build. You do realize I own multiple properties in this neighborhood, right? Karen's face twisted, her jaw tightening. What? She spat, barely containing her rage. I gave a small nod. That's right. I own 10 houses in this community. That means I have a significant say in how things are run here. In fact, according to the bylaws, because I own more than 10% of the properties in this neighborhood, my voting power actually surpasses even yours. The room went silent. Complete, utter silence. Karen's face flushed bright red. Her eyes narrowed, and she struggled to find words. "That's ridiculous," she finally stammered, but I could see the defeat starting to settle in. Before she could go on, Greg, the vice president of the HOA, cut in. "Karen, is this true?" I smiled, knowing that the tide had shifted in my favor. I pulled out the last document from my folder. "In fact," I continued, "I'd like to make a motion. Effective immediately, I propose a vote of no confidence in the current HOA president." Karen's eyes nearly popped out of her head. "You can't do that," she protested, her voice rising in panic. Greg cleared his throat, looking more than a little relieved. "Actually, he can." And with that, the vote was taken right there, and within moments, Karen was ousted from her position as the HOA president. Her reaction was exactly what I had expected. She screamed, she yelled, she threatened to take legal action, but it didn't matter. The board members were done with her. The neighborhood was done with her. Her time had run out. Within a week, a new president was elected, someone calm, reasonable, and far less like a Karen. As for Karen, her defeat was swift. She listed her house for sale the very next day. Mark, my neighbor, sent me a picture of the "for sale" sign in her yard with a single text, "Victory." In the end, the neighborhood was free of her petty tyranny, and things returned to normal. The moral of this story? People in positions of perceived power often try to bully others into submission. But knowing your rights, understanding the rules, and standing up for yourself can change everything. And sometimes, just a little unexpected ownership can be all it takes to flip the script. Don't ever back down from a bully, no matter how powerful they seem. What did you think of the story? Have you ever dealt with a Karen situation yourself? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this.